If you have a RRIF, there is a number sitting in your retirement file that most people around you don't fully understand, but they will the moment you mention it. At age 65, the CRA requires you to withdraw at least 5.28% of your RRIF balance every year. That money gets added to your taxable income. It shows up on your tax return. And if your total income climbs above $90,997, the OAS clawback kicks in at a rate of 15 cents for every dollar over that line. Now here's where it gets complicated. Let's say your RRIF is at $400,000. Your minimum withdrawal this year is $21,120. Add your CPP and OAS, and you might be sitting at $44,000 or $50,000 in annual income. That sounds solid, and it is, as long as you don't tell anyone. Because the second you share that number with a family member, something shifts. They hear $50,000 a year and they think surplus. They start doing the math on your behalf, and before long, you're not just managing your retirement, you're managing their expectations. This video is about 5 things you should never tell anybody, and why the most financially dangerous conversations you'll have in retirement are often the ones that start with the best intentions. That 5.28% sounds like a small percentage, but when it becomes a dollar figure in someone else's head, it stops being your retirement income. It becomes their floor. Here's what actually happens once you share your income. Your RRIF withdrawals are taxable income. Every dollar shows up on your T4A, gets filed with the CRA, and becomes part of your net world income for the year. There's no way around it. That's how a RRIF works. But the problem isn't the tax. The problem is what happens when someone outside your financial life sees that number. Let's say you're 65. Your RRIF balance is $500,000, and your minimum withdrawal this year is $26,400. Add $8,000 from OAS and $15,000 from CPP, and your total income is $49,400. You're well below the OAS clawback threshold. You're fine. You tell your son the number because you want him to understand why your tax bill looks the way it does. 6 months later, he's going through a rough patch. A contract fell through. The mortgage payment is tight. He remembers that $49,400. He figures you can spare $10,000. It feels like a small ask. You agree. Now your withdrawal is $10,000 higher than it needed to be. This is where most people stop doing the math, because $10,000 extra 1 year doesn't feel catastrophic. But that's not the real trap. The real trap is the expectation that gets created. Next year, the ask comes again. Maybe it's $8,000. The year after, it's tuition. And each time you say yes, not because your finances support it, but because you already told him the number, and now you can't claim hardship without looking like you're lying. Your RRIF shrinks a little faster than it should. Over 5 years, those extra withdrawals add up to $40,000 or $50,000 pulled out ahead of schedule. Your RRIF balance is lower. Your future minimum withdrawals are smaller. But his expectations? Those haven't moved. This is your identity protection line, that invisible wall between your financial health and their expectations. Once you cross it, you lose control, not because your son is a bad person, because the moment he has a number in his head, every future financial conversation happens in the shadow of that number. And the OAS clawback adds a second layer. If family pressure pushes your withdrawals high enough that your net world income passes $90,997, you start losing 15 cents of OAS for every dollar above that threshold. On $10,000 over the line, that's $1,500 back to the CRA. On $20,000 over, it's $3,000. You're not just depleting your RRIF, you're shrinking your guaranteed income at the same time. That combination, family pressure plus clawback exposure, is the actual trap. And it starts the moment you share the number. So if you can't share your income, what can you share? Because total silence isn't realistic either. Your family needs some information. The question is which information, and that's where most people have no framework at all. I used to believe that being completely open with my family about my income was a sign of trust. But after watching a friend's son start to plan around her RRIF withdrawals, asking her to adjust her timing to help him buy a house, I realized that openness without boundaries is just a slow-motion drain on your security. She wasn't protecting a secret. She was protecting her future. So think about your financial information in 3 zones. Zone 1 is the green zone. This is what you share openly, specifically your estate plan. Who is your executor? Where the documents are, which accounts go through probate and which don't. The reason to share this clearly is practical. Probate fees in Ontario are 1.5% of your estate's value. On a $600,000 estate, that's $9,000. A well-organized estate plan, with everyone knowing their role in advance, reduces conflict and may reduce that cost. This information helps your family without giving them a reason to pressure you today. Zone 2 is the yellow zone. This is what you share selectively. You can tell your children that you're comfortable, that your income covers your expenses, and you're not worried. You don't need to give them a number. I have what I need is a complete sentence. This gives them enough reassurance to plan their own lives without creating the expectation that there's always more available. Zone 3 is the red zone. This is what you never share. Your RRIF balance, your annual withdrawal amount, whether your income is approaching or past the OAS clawback threshold, your day-to-day spending. These are the numbers that, once spoken, change the dynamic in every future conversation. Notice that the framework isn't about secrecy. It's about which information serves your family and which information only creates pressure on you. Your estate plan helps them. Your RRIF balance doesn't, not yet, and not the way most people share it. Once you see it this way, you're not hiding anything. You're managing what's actually yours to manage. The RRIF wasn't always the default. Before 1992, when you converted your RRSP, you had one main option: buy an annuity. Hand your savings to an insurance company, receive a fixed income for life, done. No decisions to make, no balance to track, and no number to accidentally share with your family. The RRIF changed that. It gave Canadians flexibility. You control the investments, you control withdrawals above the minimum, and you can adjust your income year to year. That flexibility is genuinely valuable, but it also created something that didn't exist before: an ongoing, annually reported income figure that anyone with access to your tax return can see. In the annuity era, there was no number to share. Your income was fixed and private by design. With a RRIF, the number exists, it grows and shrinks, and every year's withdrawal gets documented. Now add the longevity piece. According to mortality data from the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, a healthy 65-year-old Canadian male has roughly a 45% probability of living to age 85. That means nearly half of 65-year-old men today will be managing their retirement income for 20 years or more. That's a long time for a number to be circulating in your family's memory. An amount your son learned about when you were 65 will still be in his head when you're 78, and your RRIF has changed significantly. If your withdrawals have been driven by family expectations rather than your own plan, your future self is the one absorbing the cost. A RRIF that should have lasted 25 years gets compressed into 18. That shortfall doesn't show up until you need it most. Let me show you what this actually costs over time, not in abstract terms, but in real numbers. Take 2 versions of the same person. Call him Bill. He's 65, has a $400,000 RRIF, and is receiving CPP and OAS, same starting point. 2 different choices. In the first version, Bill tells his son about the RRIF. His son is a freelance contractor. Good guy, but irregular income. Over the next 5 years, Bill lends him $10,000 per year. He tells himself it's temporary. By age 70, even assuming 5% average annual growth on the RRIF, Bill's balance has dropped to roughly $340,000 because of the extra withdrawals. At 70, the minimum withdrawal factor is 5.95%. That means his minimum this year is $20,230, about $6,000 less than what he was pulling at 65, and the loans are still ongoing. In the second version, Bill tells his son he's comfortable but keeps the number private. The son plans his own finances accordingly. Bill's RRIF grows undisturbed except for the required minimum. By age 70, his balance is closer to $380,000. His minimum withdrawal at 5.95% is $22,610. He has the option to give his son a gift if he wants, but it's a choice, not an obligation. The relationship is intact. The resentment isn't. The difference between those two paths over 5 years is roughly $40,000 in RRIF balance. That's not a rounding error. That's years of future income. But the less visible cost is what happens to the relationship on the fragility path. Bill can't say no anymore without defending himself. Every family gathering carries the weight of unspoken financial expectation. He's still generous, but now it feels like compliance, not generosity. The cost of oversharing isn't just financial. It's the loss of the ability to give freely, and that's harder to recover than the money. Let's put some stress on this, because the oversharing problem gets much worse when life doesn't go as planned. Imagine a 20% market drop, the kind we saw in 2008, or more recently in early 2020. A $500,000 RRIF becomes a $400,000 RRIF almost overnight. Your minimum withdrawal doesn't change in percentage terms, but it drops in dollars. Instead of $26,400, you're now withdrawing $21,120. Your income just fell by over $5,000 for the year. Now add the death of a spouse. The CPP survivor benefit can provide up to 60% of the deceased contributor's pension, roughly $9,000 extra per year in many cases. That cushions some of the blow, but you're now filing as a single person, which can push more income into a higher marginal bracket. Your tax situation changes, your household budget changes, you're absorbing all of this quietly. Here's where the two paths diverge sharply. If Bill shared his original $26,400 withdrawal figure with his son built expectations around that number. When the downturn hits and Bill says he can only manage $15,000 in help this year, his son doesn't understand why. Bill never explained the RRIF. He only shared the number. So now the son assumes his father is being evasive or stingy. The relationship takes a hit at exactly the moment both of them need steadiness. If Jane kept her RRIF balance private from the start, the market drop changes her budget quietly. Her daughter knows she's managing things and trusts that. Jane takes the CPP survivor benefit, adjusts her withdrawals, and recalibrates her spending. She doesn't have to explain a reduction because there was never a specific number to reduce from. No conflict, no injury to the relationship, just a private adjustment. This is the real-world test. When circumstances change, and they will, your privacy is what gives you room to adapt without having to justify every move to people who don't have full context. So let's get practical. You understand the problem. Now you need specific language for the moments that actually come up. The first one is the polite deflect. Someone asks what your RRIF is worth or how much you're pulling each year. Maybe it's your son over dinner. Maybe it's a sibling who thinks they're being helpful. The instinct is to either answer fully or get defensive. Neither serves you. Instead, try this. I appreciate you asking, but I keep my retirement numbers private. It helps me make clear decisions. Let's talk about something else. That's it. You're not accusing them of anything. You're not suggesting they're after your money. You're just drawing a line, and you're doing it warmly. The second step is the estate plan meeting. This is how you give your family meaningful financial information without handing over numbers that will create pressure. Call a meeting with a lawyer present, or at minimum after you've updated your documents, and walk them through who the executor is, where the paperwork lives, and what the process will look like. You can even frame the Ontario probate fee conversation. Estates go through a 1.5% administration tax on value, so a clear plan reduces conflict and saves money. This gives your children something concrete and useful, and it satisfies their need to feel included, without touching your RRIF balance or annual income. The third step is, for those of you who have already shared too much, it happens. You mentioned a number 2 years ago, and now you can feel the expectations that came with it. Here's what you can say. I've been reconsidering our earlier conversation about my income. I want to be clear. I need to manage my withdrawals carefully for my own long-term security. I'll let you know if I can help with something specific, but please don't assume anything. This is not an apology. It's a reset. You're not taking back your generosity. You're reclaiming your boundaries. None of these conversations are comfortable the first time. Most people avoid them for years because they feel awkward. But awkward once is better than resentful indefinitely. If you want more scripts like these, specific language for real retirement conversations, hit that subscribe button. I share practical guides every week. But even after you use these scripts, some family members will still push. That's where you need to understand what's really happening on their end, and that's what we're going to look at next. Even with the scripts and the framework, there's an internal barrier that most people don't talk about, the fear of being seen as secretive. If you say, I keep my retirement numbers private, part of you worries that your family hears, I don't trust you. That's the spotlight effect. You overestimate how much others are scrutinizing your every word. In reality, most family members don't need your specific numbers. What they need is reassurance. They want to know you're okay. That reassurance doesn't require a dollar figure. It's completely normal to feel guilty about this. You've spent decades being the person who shows up, who helps, who shares. Saying no to a question, let alone to a dollar amount, can feel like a betrayal of who you've always been. That feeling is real. It's also not a reliable guide to good decisions. I'll be honest, the first time I used that boundary script with my own daughter, my voice cracked. I felt like I was being cold. But later she told me, Dad, I'm relieved you're managing things carefully. I don't need to know the numbers. That moment taught me that boundaries aren't walls. They're what keeps the relationship from becoming a financial arrangement. The reframe that actually helps is this. Keeping your retirement numbers private is not secrecy. It's stewardship. You're not protecting a secret to shield yourself. You're protecting your future so you can be present for your family longer. The motivation shifts from fear to responsibility, and that shift makes the conversation easier to have. If you've been nodding along this whole video, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from. Now let's close with the 5 things themselves. So here are the 5 things you should never tell anybody. 1. Your RRIF balance or your annual withdrawal amount. This is the number that turns your retirement income into someone else's expectation. 2. Your OAS clawback status. Whether you're approaching that $90,997 threshold or already past it, this is private tax information that serves no one else's planning. 3. Specific inheritance details, dollar amounts, asset values, who gets what and when. There's a time for this conversation, and it's in a lawyer's office with proper documents in place, not over dinner. 4. Your daily spending habits, what you spend on travel, on your home, on yourself. Once family members have that picture, they start doing math you didn't invite them to do. 5. Your estate plan specifics, until the formal meeting is set. Share the process, not the numbers. Privacy is not secrecy. It is financial security. The people who truly love you will respect your boundaries, not because you shut them out, but because you're taking care of yourself so you can be present for them longer. If this gave you a new way to think about retirement privacy, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.